Today, I want to dedicate the session as well as the creation of the cards, animal communication, conversation cards, and DeepSpeak cards to you who've not given up with animal communication. And what do I mean by that? Because when I wanted to communicate with animals, I just thought it was going to be easy. And my first workshop, I felt that I failed miserably, and I thought I was the only one. But something kept me going. And over the years, I have met so many of you who've shared similar stories, but perhaps we've kept it a bit of a secret, almost like, dare we say that we are struggling with it? Dare we say that we almost feel as if we want to give up? So this is how the conversation cards and the DeepSpeak cards have come about, because since 2018, it has really puzzled me. Why is it that sometimes the conversations would come through easily and other times they wouldn't? And particularly with my own pets, it's like, how come they are the ones that I want to ask about why they are barking? Why are they not, using the litter tray? How come they go out at night and don't come home when I call them? How come they're limping? And, if only they could tell me what's wrong. Why is it that sometimes I can get communications from them and then other times I can't? And then when I moved into being a professional animal communicator, the pressure that I would feel and experience when there was an expectation and a hope that I could resolve issues, that I could ask the animal literally what's wrong, and they tell me what's wrong, and then ta-da, everything's resolved. The pressure that I felt took away the enjoyment that I wanted animal communication to be enjoyable and exciting and something I looked forward to. And so I began to ponder more and more about what creates this pressure, what creates this block. And I have been very fortunate to be in a position where I was offered an opportunity to have a platform where I could begin teaching. And the saying is, when the teacher is ready, the student will come, or the student is ready, and then the teacher will come. I certainly learned more teaching than I would learn as a student, for sure, because it attracted to me, it brought into my world so many people that felt relieved that I was openly saying, I get nothing sometimes. And that appears to be one of our biggest fears, is that we want to communicate with the animals and we get nothing. So what I want to say to every single one of you who's here and those of you who could be catching this replay is, what if it's not you? What if it's not you doing anything wrong? What if it's not you, that you don't have enough knowledge and you don't have enough training, and that you think you should learn more, buy more books, watch more videos? What if it's not you that feels as if you've got to get it right all the time? Perhaps, and that's what I want to present to you through our cards creation, that one element may have been missing throughout, is that the way that we approach the animal, be it our own or any other animals, the way that we approach them with the questions could be the key. It's not the only key, but it could be one of the missing keys. And so that I kind of embarked on that mission. And I remember in 2018, just innocently putting on social media, one of my social media posts, and I found that the other day. And I had written, and I could sense almost the innocence in many ways of my question, because I genuinely didn't really know what I was asking. And I put a post out on social media on my timeline saying, I have an idea. What would happen if our animals came up with the questions, if our animals came up with the topics, because I'd already been through that path for 3 years, wondering why is it that, if I ask certain questions, I get nothing back, or I just get bits and pieces. And then sometimes other sessions, I would get information that would flow. Then 2019, like I say, I had the opportunity to have a platform where I could offer my teaching, and the support that I got to be creative with my ideas. And then my path also crossed with Peer Dad. And with Peer Dad, what I found was she was a source of what I would say all my brain dumps. Anything that I couldn't work out, I say, oh, the other day I was speaking to this, member, or to this friend, or to this client, and they're saying this about their blocks, and they can't seem to get anything when they get the animals, or they feel pressure. Go, what's that about? So Peer Dad has experienced since 2019 thousands of messages from me, voice messages, where I would ask these questions out loud. And there's something about wanting to kind of have that conversation with each other in a very safe space, and not worrying about whether the things I'm saying is, like, why is a professional animal communicator saying things like she got nothing from this cat when she asked the cat something? And around the same time, Josh Cohen came along in terms of somebody introduced me to his site, Speak Good Human. And there was this platform that was ready for me to share my teachings, my thoughts. And it wasn't a formalized school where I felt like I had to give a particular curriculum and pass students. In fact, it was so rich a space where I could do exactly the same that I did with Peer Dad, but with Josh offering me this platform through Speak Good Human, I could put some of my ponderings and wonderings and test it on the students that he had that was ready. He had pet parents that were ready. He had the animal teachers that were ready. And we were talking hundreds of animals. It wasn't just like, oh, you've got a site with 10 animals that you can practice on. It was like hundreds. So you can imagine all that was going on. So I just wanted to say that these cards are dedicated to every single one of you who never gave up on animal communication. And I'm just so glad that you didn't, and that our paths cross. And the story that I wanted to share with you about the cards is important because it will showcase to you that the idea behind the cards isn't just from a whim, from something that, oh yeah, we fancy creating some cards because it's fun. And, that's okay to do too. But it's been in the pipeline for me, particularly since 2018. I just didn't know the format that it was going to come in. And we all have very different learning styles. So therefore, as you know, I'm passionate about making learning accessible to all different learning styles. So some of you like books, some of you like videos, some of you like online courses, some of you like live masterclasses. And I thought there's one area that isn't tapped into, is learning using cards as a learning tool, because we can make that so much more accessible. So that's kind of giving a little bit of a summary of why I chose to create the animal communication cards and the DeepSpeak cards. And I knew I couldn't do this on my own, not because I wasn't capable of doing it, but the richness in involving Peer Dad and asking Peer Dad, would she journey with me with this? Because we have very different styles too. And just the collaboration of sharing this project with Peer Dad is a new experience for me, because I've just been so used to do things, kind of solo in terms of creating courses. But Peer Dad will also share our love story, I hope, today. We'd like her to maybe give you an insight behind the scenes of how our paths cross. So I'd like to cover 3 things today in this session. Let me just bring the slides up, and then you know what to expect. Peer Dad will talk about the journey to collaboration, how our paths cross, and how we came to be where we are today, to be the co-creators of the animal communication conversation cards and the DeepSpeak cards. We have our special guest speaker, Josh, and I'm so excited to be reunited with Josh. And I'm going to term him as the mind behind DeepSpeak, and also his passion about having creative communication. So we'll hear from Josh. And then Piedad's going to take us through a guided meditation, which is a free gift. So you'll have a recording of this meditation when you purchase the conversation cards, but Piedad's going to lead us live with the meditation. And then we'll give you a little snippet about what to expect in day 2 and 3. So I hope that that's going to be an enjoyable session for you. So perhaps, Piedad, you want to share our love story with everyone?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Piedad Gracia. I'm an animal communicator too, and I work closely, fortunately, luckily for me, with Joe and Joe in many, many things, and the cards is one of them. I met Joanne thanks to Diana back here. So I'm really, really grateful that Diana shared in a group that he was running at the time. It was February 2019. It was a Facebook group. It was called Messages from the Wild. And I was in that group. And then she shared a post about somebody called Joe and Joe that was offering a workshop about animal communication. And then, oh, what? Animal communication? I had never heard of something like that in my life. I was immediately drawn to it. I have always loved animals, and I thought, oh, I have to try that. So I joined Joanne in his workshop. It was, I think, a 4-week workshop called Bust the Myth. And that workshop opened the gate to a magical word to me. But it was not only about the magic of communicating with animal, but also about discovery, learning, growth, development. It changed my life, really. It really, really changed my life. Then I joined, and also I would like to highlight that because this is something that all that learn with or from Joanne, she gave me the freedom to communicate in my own way with the animals. I remember my first communications were, oh my God, they were about colors, about energy, about landscapes in the ear of a cat, and all kind of things that I'm sure that if I had gone into somebody else's course, I would have somebody would, you've totally lost it. You better not keep on going there. But John encouraged me, yes, you go there, explore, go there, and this is where I am today. Then I joined the Confidence Booster Group. It was the membership that Joanne was running at the time, and it was also an incredible experience. We happened to be there during the lockdown, and then we had plenty of time at home, and we ran all kind of workshops. The members participated in all kind of experiences. We learned about kinesiology, pendulum, oracle cards, energy healing of all sides. We had our own week of self-care, learning yoga, qigong, poetry, all kind of stuff. And it was also a really, really bonding experience for all the members in that group. But then Joanne, if you know her, she can't just be there and say, oh, this is working, I'll just stay here. No, that's impossible. So she decided to move on. And before that, I was in her mentoring program, and I was challenged quite a few times by Joanne, and I really, really enjoyed that. I participated in a fund raising for animals, and I also created my own practice then in Josh's website, and I really, really loved the experience. already in the confidence booster group, we were having, at the beginning, they were called communication retreats because they lasted a whole weekend and they went for hours, but then we changed that and we called it a virtual collective communication experience. And that was together with asking ourselves, why do we not sometimes get what we want to hear from the animals, from our own animals or from other people's animals? And then is when we started to play around the idea of, why don't we ask the animals about what they would like to talk about, what topics of discussion or what questions they would like to offer us, and also about how to be more effective with our questions, because sometimes we thought it's not that the animal doesn't want to answer, it's the problem is the question itself. And this was the beginning of how we started to go deeper, both in what the DeepSpeak and the conversation cards represent, and that you will know in the following days. And then we moved on to our current community, which is the deep dive, and here we are also implementing all these things that we love and that we share. I was also the godmother of the mentees in Joanne's confidence booster group, and I really loved that experience too, because I whenever I give, I receive, and whenever I teach, I learn. This is also something Joanne said. So um, and more or less, I'm a bit nervous and excited, and I think I'm rambling and going all over because, yeah, it's such a pleasure to be here just talking to you about something we really, really love. So I think that's it, Joanne.
Thank you, dear Dad. Thank you. Think back to your own personal journey to how you got to where you are today in terms of animal communication. We all have our own story. We may not pay attention to that story. We might think, oh, we're just here because we're here. But every single one of your story matters. And our story comes in layers. They don't just, like who I am today. Those of you who might have just met me in the last 6 months or a month ago might think this is it, always been like that. And those of you who've been with me since 2015, when I first started in animal communication, in fact, we have one person here who was one of my case studies that I can remember when I did in 2015. So then you would have seen the different layers, the different stages or phases that I've moved into. And this is important that for every person, every teacher that you've met, whether, their style or approach you resonate with or don't, every book that you've read or every course that you've taken, see that they're all adding layers to you discovering you, as in you, the animal communicator within yourself, not discovering animal communication per se. And the layers are so important because they provide the foundation. And it's the foundation, the strong foundations that offer you the confidence to be creative, to explore. And that's really what it is about for me, that animal communication is about allowing us to explore. And this is where the Speak Good Human site and the presence of Josh being the founder of Speak Good Human, not just because he owned the site, but the way that he was so proactive in providing that layer when I most needed it, I would put it down categorically to say that that was the strongest foundation that I received in my teaching. And as a result of that strong layer, I've been able to be courageous sometimes challenging the norm of the animal communication community. So I want to bring Josh in, and I'm so happy and excited that he's joined us. And we're going to share the story of Josh's story, because it's his story that's important, that you can see how myself, Piedad, myself and Josh, we shared something in common that we may not have realized at the beginning, which was we struggled with what we would term the traditional or the conventional way of questions that we were offered when we learned animal communication. And it was really through this common theme that we had, and also the common desire that we wanted more meaningful conversations with animals. We also didn't really buy into the fact that animals don't want to communicate with us, because that was one of the things that always concerned me, that I heard a lot of people say. It's like, oh, I didn't get anything. The animal didn't want to talk to me that time. It just didn't sit right with me. And we, the three of us, without knowing at that time, we had these things in common. So when we were talking about, how to help other people, and Josh was really in a position to help thousands of animal communicators, professionals, and students. So, Piedad, do you want to bring Josh in for us, and then we can kind of both have a go at him in a nice way, so that we can pull out his story, which is really important.
Yeah, of course. Josh, please, could you just introduce yourself a little bit, tell us about you, and then also your experience as an animal communication learners, and how the that that journey of yours inspired your website and the new way of practice.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and I see so many similarities between both of your stories, and I'm going to say every single other person on here. We all share some really interesting things, and you'll see that as I tell my story, you'll see yourself in there, and you'll see why you are in such a great position right now to be learning this, and you will get it in the way you want it. So hang in there. But anyway, in 2015, apparently I had never known that the average person can talk with animals. I just thought, oh, you have to be a psychic, or I never really gave it much thought. It was something that was not in my world, even though I had a great love for animals, like we all do. And I just came across this book in a thrift shop, and it was about communicating with animals, and turned out to be not a great book, but it at least got it on my radar. And very, very soon after, that radar led me to this online course by a really well-known animal communicator. It was a 15-week course online, and it was, I've never heard of anything like that. Even today, the courses are typically shorter. I immediately signed up, and I was so excited. I started reading everything I could. And unfortunately, by the end of 15 weeks, I was still kind of thinking, what's going on here? Why don't I communicate with animals yet? Why? And the 50 other people in the class kind of felt the same way. Most of us were beginners, some were more experienced, and the teacher had an approach that I find many teachers to have, which is they see how things work for them, and they create a program around it, and they present that as the way that you can learn. And it works for some people. But as probably a lot of you guys know, it doesn't work for everybody, because we all have a different way of learning, and we're all at a different point of integrating things or understanding things or letting go of fears or anything like that. So when this teacher had these practice sessions for all of us, we would all log in, similar to Zoom. it wasn't with video though, and they would post a picture of an animal and they would say, okay, everybody take whatever 10 minutes to communicate with the animal and ask these questions, specific questions, and then report back, type in what you got, and we'll see how you all do. That scared the heck out of me. As a beginner, and especially seeing the more advanced students already putting in their answers right away, and they were just gung-ho, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm even going to attempt this. Even if I got the answer, who knows whether it's right, and it's embarrassing, and I'm in public here with just throwing it out there, and these guys got this answer. What if I got a different answer? Well, that shut down me, and it shut down most of the people. And I just came away from those practice sessions feeling bad and like there's got to be a better way. So by the end of the class, by the end of those 15 weeks, I started thinking about that better way, because my background is in advertising, and it's a very creative field. I love being creative. I love being innovative. And innovation is simply taking an idea that you see in front of you, somebody else's idea, and saying, okay, how can I apply my own experience and creativity and needs to this thing and make it different or better or whatever. And so I started thinking, okay, how can we do a better practice? And so I came up with a website where I contacted all the people in this class, and I said, hey, I'm starting this website. Would you like to put your animal on there for everybody else to communicate with? And this would allow anyone in the group or anyone outside the group who found the site to communicate with an animal in the group. And I would put down some questions. There were two actually ways I would have it on there. One was Q&A, questions and answers, and I would have a standard set of questions to ask this animal, and I would get the answers from the animal's person. So they would be able to check their answers immediately. It wasn't, they had to click a drop-down menu to get the answer, but it was hidden until they wanted to find the answer. And I felt like that would give them the space and the feeling of safety that I didn't have in those other sessions, to really feel comfortable with trying to practice. Anytime, any day, in my comfort of my own home, I could practice with these animals. And it started out with about 10 animals. And then I thought, also it would be great if we could, this was an expansion of this idea. What about a freestyle? And that would be set aside these questions and answers and just say, let's have a conversation with the animal. And then you could submit your conversation to the animal's person and get feedback on that. And I thought, okay, that's a great way too, two different ways of going. And it became very popular to do it this way, because you could finally step out of your comfort zone a little bit, but still stay well within your comfort zone and just kind of inch your way into animal communication. And so that's how it all started. And within a few years, I had literally hundreds of animals on the site, all self-powered. You could go on anytime from anywhere in the world and talk with any of those hundreds of animals. And you could submit your conversations or your answers, and you could get feedback from the people. And it was a great first step for a lot of beginners and people who are just trying to hone their art and practice. So that's how I started. And I ran the site for 5 years and continued to expand in many, many ways on the site. It didn't just start and stop with this practice portion of it. But what it did all the time, no matter what I introduced, was try to create a safe space for learners like you guys all over the world. Just feeling safe and feeling comfortable with practicing and learning and knowing that you can get this. You just have to be in the right space at the right time with the right techniques, the right teacher, whatever, right tools, and you'll get there. And I assume it worked. It was an extremely popular site. I don't run it actively anymore, but it's still there with lots of great stuff to look at and learn from. In fact, I've documented the 5 years as a learner on the site. So you can go and see how I started, see my thought process, see my challenges and how I overcame them, and see how I went from talking to animals in a certain way to a different way by the end. And that all kind of ties in with these conversation cards and the DeepSpeak, as we'll get there. Maybe I'll turn it back over to you guys, Joanne and Piedad, and
Yeah.
see where we go from there.
Oh, it's nice. It's nice to kind of be reminded of how you started, Josh, because it was comforting. And I like to think that perhaps that's how other people feel as well when I speak honestly about, you know, experiences where I've struggled. And it's having that balanced picture, you know, it's not like we struggled all the time and didn't get anywhere. But what's coming across is this word safety.
Yeah.
And we probably weren't even aware we needed to feel safe. But when we think about animal communication as a practice, it would attract sensitive souls. You know, we might look like we're all copers and we can kind of get on with life, and we usually are copers and, you know, caring souls, but we're ultimately sensitive souls. So when it comes to feeling that we are under pressure, we probably don't do very well. A lot of us feared getting things wrong. So, you know, if the setup was such that you thought, oh, this is like a bit of a test, and intuitively, we know the minute you feel as if you're being tested, it's not going to help you open up intuitively. So that's really what you offered, Josh, you know, like you say, for those of you who might be new to the site called Speak Good Human, was that it was accessible 24/7. It was a free site. You didn't charge students or professional communicators, you know, any fees because you wanted to make it accessible. It was an incredibly generous site, and really powered. I could really sense that it was really powered by your desire, so that students didn't feel this pressure that you had experienced, or also the confusion around how can it be like this when it's supposed to be, you know, something that's supposed to be fun and enjoyable, and you love animals, we love animals, why is this suddenly so stressful? But you didn't just offer the site for students and for learners, you also offered the site for teachers.
Yeah.
And that's really where my experience and Piedad's experience came in. Do you want to tell us a bit about the practice then?
Yes. Well, at some point I thought, well, not at some point, at the beginning I thought, you know, this teacher that I have, this 15 weeks, it was a good experience. It was a good introduction. She had the best of intentions, and that's what I can say. But it didn't do it for everybody. It didn't work for everybody. And I thought, you know, she's not the only one running these classes. There are teachers all over the world teaching classes with students who may have similar issues. And as the world went from in-person classes to online classes, it was a whole different experience when you're trying to practice and learn online with a lot of other students. And so I thought, a lot of these teachers don't have the tools that they need to really do it justice for these students. They don't address all of our challenges and all of our fears and blocks and safety issues. And I just felt like this platform that I've created to resolve my issues and the issues for fellow classmates is the perfect platform for any teacher out there who just would like to open that up to their students. And I felt like I needed to give this to them as a way for the students to finally feel like they can practice, even if they're learning a completely different method. It doesn't matter. The teaching method didn't matter to me. It was the practice method that mattered to me. And I wanted them to be able to come here and practice in a safe environment. And so I offered these practice dens on the site for any teacher who wanted it. They could teach any which way they wanted, but here is a place where their students can go, set up by the teacher with animals approved or accepted by the teacher, and they could get instructions from the teacher as to how to go about it. And so that's when I would start offering these practice dens so that people like Joanne can say, hey, I now have a practice den for you guys, my students, and here's how it works. You can get input and feedback from me and the pet parents, and it's all part of the package that I offer as part of the teaching experience. So that's what it was. Practice dens, and teachers all over the world were having these dens set up to support their classes and their students. And I know I'll have to say, Joanne used it the best. She was, Joanne, I will talk to you directly.
Okay.
Your innovation, I love working with you because you had the same approach as I did, which was there's not one approach. There's lots of approaches, and I filled the site with things that I came across that I thought might help people. It may not have helped me, but I'm one person, so it might help somebody else. So I'll put it up there, and people can decide whether it helps them or not. And you did not have an approach where here's my program, use it, and if you don't get it, oh well, everybody else seems to. It wasn't like that at all. It was always, here's an approach, try it, and then I'll help you along. I'll figure out what will work best for you, or what we might try to help you learn these things and connect with animals. And so your practice den was inspiring. It was full of those types of things, exercises and approaches and ways to do things that were always changing, because you were always monitoring what was going on with the students and how they worked and what challenges came up and how you can get them to think about things differently. I mean, person to person. It wasn't just in general, it's person to person. And I saw the most success coming from your practice den because of this type of thing. Is outside the box thinking and innovation. And I'll say, you can also call it co-creative, because that's how I felt like my site was a co-creative site. It was a site that I put out there, and I would read lots of books, I would read lots of websites, I would do lots of practicing, and I would take those and working with the animals also, co-creating with them a new way or a different approach or a different idea. And that's the same with you. And I'll say what you've tried to do and what you did then and what I tried to do was give those tools to everybody else. All of you guys here, anybody on the site, anybody learning, that those are the tools that we give. It's co-creative. It's not that you're being compared to anybody else with the results that you're getting when communicating with animals. It's nothing like anybody else. It's you and the animal, which is an experience that is so individual that it can't be compared. And that way you are creating this, you are innovating on your own. So that's what I loved about working with Joanne, is that it was just that way. It was always creating, and it was always something looking beyond. And that's why I love this card deck ideas and everything else you've done as well. But this is a perfect example of co-creation and how everybody else can use these to co-create their conversations from here on out.
Yeah. I remember those days so clearly when I had the platform Speak Good Human to have my practice then, because, you know, we touched on earlier about feeling safe. So those of you who are in my membership, or those of you who might have worked with me one-to-one, one of the things that I also want to ensure is that you feel safe. And what this feeling safe means is that you never are made to feel silly, you know, that, and I always remember with Peer Dad, when she came to do one of my courses, and I was really new at teaching then too. So I was nervous. Obviously, I didn't show it. So people thought, oh, she knows what she's doing. But what it meant with my teaching style is developed. You call me innovative, you call me, you know, creative, and the collaboration. But that's because with Josh at the practice then and the Speak Good Human site, I could go to Josh with any ideas at all, anything that came to my head. I might even be apologetic in some of my emails and saying, you know, oh, I don't know if this is a good idea or not. And what isn't obvious to the users, because they would see you as the animal communicator, but what they didn't realize was all the techie stuff, you know, to create something, to produce it so that it's accessible to the others. What we don't see is all the you know, admin and the tech and the system. I mean, Josh, you're like a whiz. So it was like the most amazing formula to have an animal communicator, but somebody that you could literally, almost like you could just give a wish to Santa and say, could I have, you know, a kind of a program where we could create video calls so that the pet parents could come on video, and then I can help the students who want to learn to do video calls and do live communication. You know, it's such a good idea, right? But how do you manage that when we're all in different countries, we're all different time zones? You know, how do you create where people know about it? So Josh is like a week later. It wasn't even like I had to wait months. We just whiz up this computer system and says to me, okay, they just need to fill this form in, and then, you know, we're going to pull all the details together, and then they'll have this calendar where they'll click, and then it'll coordinate the student, it'll coordinate you, it'll coordinate the pet parent, and then you can all come together, and then you can record it. And that really was the most astounding thing ever. So what you did for me then, Josh, was really shared with me that it's not impossible with any ideas that you want to create. Yes, the back end stuff is just mind blowing and can be so frustrating. But when you have that support, so I had that support from Josh, and then I had the support from Peer Dad, where, like I say, you talk about me, you know, doing the one-to-one, and Peer Dad has kind of kept herself in the background, that's just who she is, but I'm trying to push her forward. But Peer Dad, when I appointed her the mentee's godmother, she got that name for a reason. And oh my goodness, did she nurture every single person who signed up for that mentoring course. You know, she checked in on them. She will do like all these emails where they could just be pouring their heart out to her about how they were feeling. It was also somebody else that they could go to other than myself, because we would have, you know, we would have a different relationship. So this collaboration, this co-creation, that's what is the magic. That's how these cards have come about. It's all these layers, the layers that, although it might not be that Josh is involved in the creation of the cards itself, but the layers of the foundations that I have as a result of the connection that we've had and what you offered me, and the unrelentless encouragement and support that Peer Dad offers me because of who she is. That's really what these two card decks really represent. And I want to kind of bring Josh in again, just more about how did we come up with the name DeepSpeak? And it's so nice to kind of revive it. In fact, I'm just going to go to Peer Dad for a moment here. Can you remember when the DeepSpeak concept or program was kind of offered within the Speak Good Human practice then?
Yeah, I was visualizing, you know, a visual that Josh even put a map on every animal so that everybody knew where the animal was, just in case for the different time zones to coordinate. Because if the communicator or the learner was in Europe, but the animal was in Australia, they could see that they needed to get together to find the time and date. Yeah, because as you said, Josh is such a thorough person. He's very smart, very sensitive, and he covered everything. And it was just amazing. At the time that you both created the DeepSpeak, I was in your mentoring program, and I had the challenge of creating my own den also in Josh's website and with his support, obviously. That was also really good to me because it showed me that there was something I could share that may help others. And that was also the beginning of what eventually has been also my teaching experience. And then the DeepSpeak, I had never done live communications before. And now I would say that is the only way I like to do it. Sometimes I do email, but I really like it because at the time with your support, Joanne, obviously, because I remember sometimes I was, oh my God, what is it? What's going on? I don't, how shall I do this? And then you were there, so calm, so supportive. And also the pet parents in Josh's website, they were all supportive. They would never judge you. They all were there for us to as a real team. We were real teams searching for what was best for the animals and also for the learners. It was a wonderful experience, I would say, and it was not only me. Many mentees of Joanne's were there. I can remember Verena or somebody else's. So it was wonderful. But I remember, yeah, the map on the animal showing where the animal was located, because that was how thorough Josh is. And that was an amazing, amazing experience. So yeah, I really liked it.
And we love the name DeepSpeak. And ever since we kind of moved in our own direction, and I set up, the Deep Dive membership, the DeepSpeak name has stayed with me because the discussion I had with Josh really around it. And Josh, you came up with the name because I think I kept saying something like, I want a deeper conversation. I wanted to have more than just what's your favorite toy, or, where's what color ball do you want? It's like I wanted more, and the word deep kept coming up. And so I just felt for a long time like, how could I use that word again? And in fact, I think at one point when I was writing my book, I remember saying to you, Josh, do you think I could call my book DeepSpeak? But it didn't quite fit.
Right.
So I really want to give credit, where credit's due, that Josh, you came up with this name. Would you maybe give us an idea how DeepSpeak, almost like, why did you choose the word deeps or the name DeepSpeak when we did it in the practice down?
It probably was, I don't know, remember exactly, but it likely was because we were working together in this way, this creative partnership, because you did mention that you wanted to go deeper, and this was a whole new layer. And that's what I loved about your stuff and working with you, because what started as Q&As and then went on to this freestyle way, and then many other tools. Now you're taking it to another level. You're adding another layer by adding live videos. So, okay, yes, you could be really afraid of this. You may not be ready for it because communicating live is a whole different experience. But you did it with that. You were right next to them video wise. You're always there. And I was really surprised to hear how many people actually loved doing it that way and were able to do it and preferred it. And it opened up a whole new world for a lot of people to communicate in, real time with an animal and the person, right? The animal's person right there. And so this deeper conversation, it wasn't like you're just asking specific questions, like you said, what color is your bowl or what do you like to do? It was a conversation like you'd have with anybody where you would, again, co-create it. You would ask a question to get to know the person or the animal, and you would get an answer back, and then you would use that answer to springboard into another direction. And that really resonated with me because though I had some success with my questions and answers format and my freestyle format, it wasn't until I broke free of that, for my personally, and I just started having these types of conversations, these intuitive, natural conversations where it wasn't trying to get a specific answer. It was simply having a conversation, letting the animal lead. That's when it broke free for me. That's when I started having great conversations and long ones and deep ones. And so this really resonated with me. The videos part of it took some getting used to, but it was the concept behind it that really fed this, and why I really felt DeepSpeak was a good name for it, because it was going deeper than just these, what color is your bowl and where do you like to walk? It was deeper than that. It was a real intuitive conversation. And it's been so great to see how that started there and where it's gone now. It's perfect. It's just perfect.
And, for you to gift us that name, DeepSpeak, Josh, it's a huge thanks from Piedad and myself. I know we created 2 card decks, which was conversation cards and DeepSpeak. And the DeepSpeak very much has that, almost like going down memory lane of that safety where you can have the cards, you're all on, there's no pressure. You can access them anytime you want. The teachers, the animals are there. You don't have to go looking for case studies. The questions are there, and the questions have been phrased, which is animal led. So to gift us that name, Josh, it's like, we're so happy because it allows Piedad and I to touch base again to the origins of it. The kind of layers of how we got to where we are today.
Yeah. I'll say before you go on, you might be lucky that I am not actively doing speak anymore, because the way I worked was I was just after any ideas that worked for people, and I would try to put them on the site, not stealing anybody's ideas, just saying here's an approach and here's a teacher who does this. And I always gave credit where credit was due, but I would love to just put things on there, to help people. And if I were doing it now, I most definitely would have moved on from these typical Q&As and ways of practicing, and I would have gone more to what you're doing. This is what it is. It's the next level, and it's because it works so well.
Yeah.
So it would have been my next step as well.
Absolutely, 100%, Josh. And I hope that gives everybody a sense of almost like enlightenment, maybe, that if you have struggled with the type of Q&A questions before, it's not saying it's wrong. It's saying that it's almost like it only gets you so far. So if you yearn to have those kind of conversations where you just want to know your animal more, how they're really thinking, how they're really feeling, and then there's a part of you that know that they are this, you know, not just a dog or a cat or a horse in this physical body, but much more how they want to guide you, you know. So it's something about being able to open up our intuitive communication channels, and how we ask the questions determine that, because some questions just kind of box you in terms of your intuitive ability. So I think you were looking into that a little bit, weren't you, Josh, about how certain types of questions can open up channels?
Yes. Yeah. Specifically, what I found was instead of the specific question like what color is your bowl or what do you like to eat, those require a specific answer back that is, you know, it's not movable really. It's an answer. It's either blue or red or kibble or whatever. But actual research in telepathy and psychic abilities and things like that show that the better question is to leave it open and be more natural about it and ask something like, tell me about what you like to eat, or tell me about the room you like to hang out in, or, you know, leave it open, and it's more conversational. And that's exactly how I started having so much success, is to do away with the questions that required an answer, which are good. The questions that require an answer, that's part of conversation, and it always will be. But what it does sometimes is make you afraid to answer or to get those answers because you think you might be hearing it wrong, or it may not be what the animal's person had in mind, or maybe not what somebody else was getting. So it's about our own blocks, not about the system. But this new system, this better system of leaving it open intuitively, asking about that doesn't box you into a corner. It doesn't make you a duplicate of anybody else. It's you and the animal doing your thing that nobody else is doing. You can't get it wrong.
Love that. You can't get it wrong. So give me 2 thumbs up if you like the thought that it's not that you can't communicate with animals, but it could be that the type of questions you've been asking hasn't really helped you. Because if you've got 2 thumbs up, then you're going to like our cards. If you haven't got your thumbs up, we'll be like, uh-oh. So therefore, where we're at is we all now go, God, that's good news. That's great news. That is something that we can change. It's not like suddenly you're thinking, oh, I don't have the ability, or I'm shut down, or I'm not intuitive. You know, those are the things that we worry about when we don't think that is going successfully. So now we're bringing to you, and hopefully all that we've talked about is really to showcase to you that this is something that we've all searched deep, either on our own or together, and tested it. Because it isn't like I'm just saying this and therefore you should believe me. No, you know, it's like we come from the belief, that's Piedad, Josh, and myself, and you touched on this earlier, Josh, is that just because you follow a teacher and you sign up on their course, my understanding is that they're teaching you what works for them. And that's right. That's the only way in many ways. But don't just think that's it, you know. So therefore, if you study from 2 or 3 teachers, and then you might get confused and go, oh, one says this, but the other one says that. And then you're thinking that teacher's right and that teacher's wrong. No, pick and choose what really resonates. So what we want to share with you is the questions. So great. Now you would say, hurrah, it could be the questions. But what then Piedad and I found was we were still getting people saying to us, but if only we knew what questions to ask, if only we knew how to ask those questions. And they'll say to me, I'm all right when you're there with me because you just help me with the questions. And then every time I ask those questions, creative questions, I don't have a problem receiving the information from the animal. So this is why Piedad and I thought, right, we're going to have to sort this out. How can we create it so that you have something accessible, maybe as an example, because that's all it is at the end of the day. Once you start to see the style of the questions, and it doesn't mean that those are the only questions you ask animals. What we wanted was for the 2-card decks, for you to have examples that you can start to get a feel for it, to get a flavor of it. Some questions maybe in the 62 conversation cards aren't all going to give you that flow of conversation, but you'll probably find some that you really, really like, and you can start to use them as templates. So that's our idea behind the cards. It's not to say to you, these are the 62 questions you can ask and that's it, or these are the 44 animal-led questions and that's it. They're really just to give you a sample of what's possible, that you may not think that you may not even think, gosh, is that animal communication? That's what we really wanted to kind of open it up for you. So Piedad, any kind of closing words before we maybe come to your meditation?
No, just this whole thing about creating the cards has also taken me back in time. And I was reviewing my notes, and I remember I once did one of those question and answers on your website, Josh. And I remember, and the note on the top is total failure, because I think that I didn't have maybe 1 or 2 correct answers out of 15. and then I said, okay, this is not my thing. I'd rather go to the other type of question.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's true. You know, people who learners who would go there would always feel like, oh, the safest bet for me is to do the questions and answers where I can find the answers right away. And I would always say, you might find that's the right way to go, but actually I prefer the freestyle, this other way of doing things where you just have a natural conversation. And it was too scary for a lot of people, but you found out the hard way. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. There's always something to learn about yourself whenever you do something wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
we learn from what we do wrong, not from what we do right. Yeah.
That's the whole thing. And
yeah,
you know,
and, sorry, Josh. Yeah.
no, I'll say also, you know, why this is so great, this format is because, okay, I'm more of a, well, they call me an ambivert. I'm not an extrovert and I'm not an introvert. I'm in the middle. I can handle any conversation anywhere I go, but I'm not looking for conversations. But when I meet people out, when I'm on a walk or at the shops or whatever, and you can track this on your own, you probably already know, the things that people talk about, that if you don't know them, they will talk about probably the weather, the sports team, basic things over and over and over and over. And that's not interesting to me. And I can't imagine it's that interesting to them. They just don't know what else to talk about. They don't know you, and they don't know what to talk about that will interest you. But boy, these cards take that into a whole different direction because they're sort of pre-vetted. You know what the animal wants to talk about. You know about some of the things that they want you to ask them. And so that's already way beyond the typical, and it gets you excited. It gets both sides excited because you can go do away with the boring stuff and the stuff that is not interesting or inspiring and go right into, okay, let's have an interesting conversation here. So it's great.
Yeah, that's so true. We really went into seeing how we could ask the question in a way that the animal knows exactly what we want to know, because that's really one of the points that we will discuss later on these 2 days. And also what the animals love discussing that is not normally what we want to know from them. That's also something we've learned with these all this exploration, this work we have been doing for all these years. So yeah. Thank you, Josh.
Well, I'm so grateful that we've been able to go down memory lane a little bit, because it shows me how important it is that these cards aren't just, like I say, here, see what you think. They really came from the care that each of our individual paths and how we've collaborated with each other, always holding animal communication enthusiasts and animal lovers foremost on our mind. The ones that have mentioned that they struggle, the ones that have mentioned that they doubt themselves, the ones that mention, why can't I do it? Or particularly for me, the ones that say, I can communicate with other people's animals, but I can't communicate with my own. So these cards have come about because we want to say to you, this we do believe is going to really help you look at it in a different way. It is not a structured thing that tells you what to do, but that it will be intuitive. That's why we wanted it in the card deck form, because with anything, you know, if it was a course or if it was a book, you would feel like you had to do it from page 1 to the end. But with a card deck, it can be very intuitive. You can just play with them. Being playful with animal communication is a huge thing as well. So we'll talk a lot more about the cards tomorrow and the day after. I'll also show you how to access the cards using the decks, because it's using the app. It's the first time myself and Piedad has even attempted to create a card deck that's digital, but we feel that it's something that you can carry with you, you know, 24/7, and you can kind of be really tactile with it as well. So we'll do a bit of a tutorial. So before we lead you into a meditation, if you want to stay for that, Josh, any closing thoughts, words you want to impart?
Just reiterate that I've said it a bunch of different ways, but I really believe it. It's this co-creative process that tools like this give you. Each of you have brought to the table your own experiences, or your lifetime experiences, your own loves and fears and desires and tools and interests. There's so many things that make you individual. And when you sit down with any of these animals, and with the cards or any of your animals or anybody else's animals, and you use tools like this, you're creating an experience that is unlike any other. Nobody else will have this exact interaction with this animal. And some of the conversations I've had with animals in this vein, in this way, it's created some really incredible conversations. You can read about them all on my website to get an idea of how things can go. And you can see where I started and where I ended. It's night and day. And I much prefer these rich, deep conversations, because I'm really getting to know the animal in a real way. I'm not just using them for practice. I'm getting to know them. They're like friends. So each of you, really, it's like a recipe. You're each a different ingredient, and it's exciting to know that you're going to be kind of creating your own recipe here with these tools, these ingredients, and you guys. It's great. It's exciting. I know you're going to do it.
Thank you, Josh. And I want to say a huge thank you, Josh, for all the years of your generosity, sharing Speak Good Human with hundreds and thousands of students, for being here and always supporting me in the background, me and Piedad, and definitely for the gift of the name DeepSpeak.
You're welcome. Happy to do it.
So, Piedad, I think we're all ready. We've got like our heads are full of stuff. So we're really ready for one of your beautiful meditation that Piedad has created. And the when you purchase the cards and you get the download, we also had Annika, who is one of the persons of the animals featured in the DeepSpeak. She's a harpist, and she also composed the music, but that's in the recording. We don't want to give you everything today, but Piedad's going to lead us into a meditation, and I think that would be a really lovely way to close for this session. So over to you, Piedad.
Thank you. Okay, so place yourselves in a comfortable position. You can still be sitting on a chair, lying down. If you want to switch off your video, that's okay. Whatever feels best for you. Close your eyes or keep them open. Take a few deep conscious breaths to connect with yourself in this place and time. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. One more time. Inhale. Exhale. Now allow your breathing to happen naturally. Check your physical body and set the intention of releasing any tension, of relaxing. Breathing deeply again if you need it. Gently move your head from one side to the other. Loosen your shoulders. Soften your forehead, the bit of your jaw. Do any movements you need. Feel your body relaxed. Now, set the intention of opening your communication channels and connecting with one of your animal companions. Connect with their energy. Can you see any colors, shapes, textures? What do they mean to you? How does their energy feel? Heavy? Light? Is it high or low? Vibrant? Dull? Ask them to share with you the emotion or emotions they are experiencing at the moment. What emotion or emotions are coming to you? Are you experiencing the emotion yourself? Or is it coming differently? As a sensation, for example. Just be aware, no judgment. Now, ask them to share a physical sensation. It may take time. Just be open. What do you feel? Do you feel warmer or cooler? Any tingling sensation somewhere in your own body? What about your heartbeat? Do you feel discomfort in a certain part of your body? Just acknowledge whatever you receive. Be aware. If you need, you can ask your animal for confirmation. Now, ask your animal companion to share with you a visual. It can be something familiar to both of you. An object, a landscape, a room in your house, or it can be symbolic. If that's the case, what does it mean? Visuals can come in different ways. No judgment. Don't think that if you are not visual, that's wrong. What about a sound? Ask them to share with you a sound. It can be anything, from a sound in your surroundings to a melody or a song. It can be their own voice. What about the smell? Ask them to share a smell. It can be something they are smelling at the moment, or the smell of something they like. Does the smell trigger a memory or an emotion? Just be aware. It can be subtle, it can be strong, no judgment. Now, ask them to share a flavor with you. You can receive a specific flavor or the quality of it. Sweet, salty, bitter. It can also be very subtle. Or it can just be a sensation in your mouth. You feel your mouth dry. Or the opposite, you're salivating. Just experience it. Allow yourself to experience it. to finish, ask them to send you a word or words, a thought, a message for you, some guidance, some wisdom. Say thank you to your animal for sharing all these with you. And when you're ready, open your eyes and come back.
Thank you, Piedad. That was beautiful. Okay, well, we'll keep that energy before we ramp it up again. So tomorrow we'll be diving into the conversation cards. And then on Saturday, we will be diving into the DeepSpeak cards. And for both days, we were going to include some tutorial in terms of, I want you to be hands-on with using the app. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you find your way around it, you can then be very playful and creative with it. So thank you very much for caring and for your support. You've all been celebrating with me throughout this week. So I want to thank you for that. Big thanks to Josh for being here, your time. And of course, Piedad, it's a dream come true for me to collaborate with Piedad. It's been something that I've wanted for a long, long time, to see our names next to each other on a tangible product of something that we both believe in. It's just made my whole year. So see you all tomorrow. Bye, everybody.